My phone rang 31 times before lunch. I know because Caleb counted every buzz against the wooden dock like it was part of some game only a 7-year-old could invent. He was sitting barefoot beside me at Lake Lure, trying to tie fishing line around a stick that was almost taller than he was. Junie sat on the picnic blanket behind us, eating cold pancakes with her fingers, syrup stuck in her curls, her yellow swimsuit already damp from running too close to the water. The screen lit up again. Mom. Then Brielle. Then Mom again. I turned the phone face down on my towel and watched a duck glide under the dock, like nothing in the world had ever gone wrong. What I did not know in that exact minute, though I could guess most of it, was that my sister was standing 128 miles away in the lobby of Cedar Ridge Lodge in Gatlinburg, arguing with a front desk clerk over a cabin she had not paid for. My mother was sitting in a leather chair beside a fake stone fireplace, holding the debit card I had left for medicine, heat, and groceries. Not hot tubs, not mountain views. Not a 5-day lodge stay my children had been cut from. Brielle had booked the whole thing for $4,680. She had paid $1,100 on her own card and planned to charge the remaining $3,580 to the account I created for Mom's care. But that account had $18.72 in it. They thought I was cruel for not answering. But cruelty was not moving my money. Cruelty was telling my children they were too much trouble for a family vacation, then expecting their mother to pay for everyone else to go. Those 31 calls were not the beginning. They were the receipt. To understand why I let that phone ring, I have to take you back to the summer. My father handed me a manila envelope and asked me to keep the lights on. Please subscribe to support the channel. I bet your phone battery is at 98% right now, right? If that's true, type 1. If not, type 2. Let's see whether I got it right. All right, enough talking. Let's begin the story. Before that summer, before the hospital room, before the envelope, my life was small in a way I had worked very hard to make safe. My name is Maren Ellis. I was 34 years old then, divorced for 3 years, and I worked as a medical billing coordinator at Foothills Recovery Clinic on the west side of Knoxville. It was not the kind of job people brag about at reunions. Nobody asks you to explain modifier codes over potato salad, but it paid $52,800 a year, came with dental insurance, and let me leave at 5 most days if I kept my claims clean and my denials under control. I was good at it. Not because I loved paperwork, because paperwork had rules. If a claim was rejected, there was a reason. Wrong code. Missing authorization. Date of service did not match the referral. You fixed the line, resubmitted it, and waited. Families were not like that. Families could reject you without a code and still expect you to cover the balance. Every morning started at 5:15. The coffee maker coughed before it brewed, like it resented being alive that early. I packed Caleb's lunch first because he inspected sandwiches like a health inspector. Turkey, no mustard, crust cut off, grapes in the blue container, not the green one. Junie got yogurt with the little unicorn on the label, and whatever fruit I could afford that week without rearranging the grocery column. My apartment was 12 minutes from Caleb's school if the light on Kingston Pike behaved, 18 if it did not. Junie's daycare was another 7 minutes past that, in a brick building beside a tire shop with a faded mural of cartoon clouds on the wall. I knew every pothole between home and the clinic. I knew which gas station dropped prices on Wednesdays. I knew Kroger marked down rotisserie chickens after 7 p.m., and that Caleb would eat leftovers if I called them picnic chicken. My budget lived in a spreadsheet with 17 columns: rent, daycare, groceries, gas, insurance, co-pays, school fees, mom, lake fund. That last one was only $175 a month, moved automatically before I could talk myself out of it. I treated it like it belonged to my children, because in my mind, it did. It was not vacation money. It was proof that their childhood would have something soft in it. There were months I wanted to stop that transfer. When Junie needed antibiotics. When Caleb outgrew his sneakers in the same week, the car needed brakes. When Mom called and said her electric bill was higher because the heat had run all night. Nobody noticed the shoes I did not buy for myself, or the dentist appointment I pushed back twice, or the way I made one tank of gas last until Friday. They only noticed that when something broke, I usually had enough left to fix it. That was the thing about being careful in my family. They never called it discipline, they called it having extra. And once people decide you have extra, they start building plans around it. My father understood that long before I did. Nolan Ellis had carried mail for 32 years, through summer heat that shimmered above asphalt and winter mornings when the porch steps turned slick before sunrise. He knew which houses had dogs that only pretended to bite, which widows needed their packages set inside the storm door, and which old men stood at the mailbox, just because it was the only conversation they would have all day. He was not a loud man. He did not make speeches. He showed up, 6 days a week, in a blue shirt with his name stitched over the pocket, and somehow made reliability look like a religion. The stroke happened in July, a Tuesday. I remember because I was at work fighting with an insurance portal that kept timing out when Mom called and said Dad had dropped his coffee cup in the kitchen and could not make his right hand pick it back up. By the time I reached the University of Tennessee Medical Center, he was already in a room with wires on his chest and one side of his face lower than the other. Brielle was by the window, scrolling through her phone, whispering into it like the walls had offended her. Mom sat beside the bed, with both hands wrapped around a tissue she had not used. Dad looked smaller in that bed. Not weak exactly, just reduced, like someone had taken the man who used to carry 50 pounds of mail up hills and folded him into hospital sheets. When he saw me, his eyes moved to the chair beside him. I sat down. He lifted his left hand, slow and stubborn, and pointed toward the drawer near the bed. Inside was a manila envelope. My name was written across it, in his blocky root sheet handwriting. Maren. That was all. I opened it with my thumb. Life insurance policy. Bank logins. Mom's utility bills. A list of her medications. The number for the man who serviced the heating unit. A yellow sticky note with the words, Colleen first, but not only Colleen. Dad watched me read it. Then he said, each word scraped thin. Your mother will need help. But help her, Maren. Don't disappear inside it. I nodded, because that is what daughters do when fathers ask for impossible things. Across the room, Brielle looked up just long enough to see the envelope in my lap. Her face changed before she could hide it. She did not say anything until the parking garage. My phone buzzed before I even started the car. Guess Dad finally made you the family accountant. Enjoy feeling important. I sat there 18 minutes with the engine off, the envelope on the passenger seat, and understood something I had not wanted to know. Dad had not handed me power. He had handed me weight. Brielle looked at that weight and called it favoritism. Dad died 11 days later, before the hospital bills even finished arriving. The funeral was on a Friday morning with thunder sitting low over Knoxville and rain tapping the funeral home windows like impatient fingers. Brielle wore black linen and waterproof mascara. Mom held my arm so tightly during the service that my wrist ached for 2 days. I remember thinking how strange grief was, how it could make a room full of people whisper and still leave you feeling completely alone. In the weeks after the funeral, I did what Dad had asked, because there was no one else who would do it without turning it into a performance. When the life insurance finally paid out, it was $92,000. It sounds like a lot until grief starts handing you receipts. $28,400 went to the last medical bills. $9,750 went to replace the heating system in Mom's house before winter. $3,600 fixed the old water line that had been leaking under the crawl space long enough to soften the floor near the laundry room. I put $27,500 into an emergency account for Mom and labeled it in my spreadsheet as Colleen Care. I did not tell Brielle the exact numbers. I did not have to. She never wanted details unless they proved she had been cheated. What I did do was set up a monthly transfer from my checking to Mom's account. $375 on the first of every month. It covered the gap between her Social Security and the bills Dad used to absorb without mentioning. Prescriptions. groceries, the electric bill when July got too hot or January got too cold. I also gave Mom a debit card linked to the Care account. She had asked Brielle and me to come by after church that Sunday, mostly because she said the house felt too quiet with only one coffee cup in the sink. We sat at her kitchen table while she stirred powdered creamer into coffee she never drank, and I slid the card across the table slowly, like I was handing over something fragile. Medicine, heat, groceries, I told her. That's what this card is for. Mom nodded. Brielle was leaning against the counter, scrolling through listings on her phone. She heard me. I know she heard me because she looked up and said, "Nobody's trying to rob you, Maren." I should have taken the card back right then. But grief makes you generous in stupid ways. It makes you confuse keeping peace with keeping love. So I let Mom keep it. That first summer without Dad, I tried to save one thing from before. The mountain trip. Every July, since Brielle and I were little, Dad had driven us into the Smokies with a cooler packed before sunrise and a paper map folded wrong in the glove box. He liked Townsend better than Gatlinburg because, he said, Gatlinburg had too many t-shirt shops and not enough quiet. We never stayed anywhere fancy. Just old cabins with screened porches, thin towels, and board games missing half the pieces. Caleb remembered one trip with him. He had been 4, sitting behind Dad in the truck, asking what the green road signs meant. Dad told him, "Green signs tell you where you're going." Caleb repeated that for months. So I kept the trip alive. Not because Brielle deserved it. Not because Mom appreciated what it cost. I kept it because my children deserved memories that did not smell like hospital soap and unpaid bills. And somewhere along the way, the card I left for Care became, in Brielle's mind, a family card, then a vacation card, then a card she could use without asking, because people like Brielle never steal all at once. They rename what they are taking until it sounds like something you owed them. By late June, Brielle had started using the phrase, "Mom's summer," like she had invented grief herself. She said it everywhere, especially under old photos of Dad in his mail carrier uniform. Mom deserves one peaceful summer. Mom needs something beautiful to look forward to. Mom has been through enough. Every sentence sounded tender, until you noticed who was expected to pay for the tenderness. The dinner happened on a Sunday at Mom's house, the kind of meal she made when she wanted everyone to pretend we were still normal. Meatloaf, dry at the edges, green beans from a can. Kroger rolls warming in a basket lined with the same blue towel she had used since I was a teenager. Caleb brought his folded map of the Smokies because he thought we were finally talking about the trip. Junie carried a sheet of bear stickers and pressed one onto Mom's wrist before dinner. Mom smiled at it, but only for a second. Brielle arrived 17 minutes late in white linen pants, sunglasses pushed into her hair. Sloan came in with earbuds. Carter went straight for the rolls before anyone prayed. We ate for 20 minutes before Brielle placed her phone in the center of the table. "I found the perfect place," she said. On the screen was Cedar Ridge Lodge. Stone fireplace, mountain view, hot tub on the deck, game room, 5 days, 4 nights. The kind of cabin Dad would have hated because it looked like it came with a cleaning fee larger than his first paycheck. Mom leaned closer. "Oh, honey, that's beautiful." Brielle smiled at her, then looked at me. "We decided this year needs to be calmer." I put my fork down. She kept going, voice smooth, already rehearsed. "Mom can't handle little kids running everywhere. Caleb gets overwhelmed, and Junie still naps. It's just better if they sit this one out." For a second, all I heard was the refrigerator humming. Carter was under the table kicking the chair leg. Sloan was tapping on her phone. The problem was not children. The problem was mine. Caleb looked up from his map, his finger still resting on a green road that curved through the mountains. "Are we not going because Aunt Brielle doesn't like us?" Nobody answered him. Mom stared at her plate. Brielle took a sip of lemonade like my son had not just handed the room its own reflection. Then I saw it. On the side table by Mom's purse, half tucked under a grocery receipt, was the Colleen Care card. "Mom," I said quietly, "why is that card out?" Her hand moved toward her lap. Brielle needed it to hold the cabin. Brielle did not even look ashamed. It's for Mom's vacation. That counts as care. I stood up slowly, wiped Junie's sticky fingers with a napkin, and told Caleb to get his map. Brielle sighed. Don't make this dramatic. I looked at the card, then at my children. You made it a bill before I made it a scene. I got the kids into the car before my hands started shaking. That was how I knew I had done the right thing. My body always waited until my children were buckled in before it told the truth. Caleb sat behind me, with his map folded in his lap, staring out the window like he was trying not to be 7. Junie had one bear sticker stuck to her own cheek, and another on the back of my seat. Nobody spoke until we reached the stop sign at the end of Mom's street. Are we still going to the mountains? Caleb asked. I looked at him in the rearview mirror. His eyes were dry, which somehow made it worse. We're going somewhere, I said. I promise. That night, after baths and pajamas, and Junie asking for water twice, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and the apartment quiet around me. The dishwasher clicked through its cycle. The porch light outside flickered every few seconds because I kept forgetting to buy the right bulb. I pulled up my email, not because I expected to find anything new, but because something about Brielle's face at dinner had been too calm. People look different when they are asking for help than they do when they already think they have taken it. 3 days earlier, I had ignored an email from Cedar Ridge Lodge because I thought it was spam. Now I opened it. Remaining balance scheduled. Card ending in 2196. Amount due, $3,580. I stared at those 4 numbers until the room seemed to narrow around them. That was Mom's care card. The card for blood pressure pills, groceries, heat. The card Brielle had watched me explain at Mom's kitchen table and then pretended not to understand when it became useful. I opened the banking app next. At first, everything looked normal. Then I went back 6 weeks and started reading line by line, the way I did at work when a claim did not balance. Target, 146,882. Gas in Saviorville, $72.40. Home goods, $218.19. A restaurant in Pigeon Forge I had never been to. Then the pending hold from Cedar Ridge Lodge. 1,200 My stomach did not drop. It hardened. I thought about calling Mom. I thought about texting Brielle. I thought about writing one long paragraph full of words like unauthorized and emergency and how dare you. Then I looked down the hall toward my children's bedroom and remembered Caleb's face over that map. Some conversations are just another way to give people time to lie. The next morning, I took an early lunch and drove to Volunteer Valley Credit Union, the small branch beside the pharmacy with the cracked blue awning. Graham Lyle, the manager, had silver hair and a voice that made every sentence sound notarized. He did not ask me why my mother was an authorized user. He did not make a face when I said I needed a new checking account and a new savings account in my name only. He just slid the forms across the desk. I moved $3,150 from the Lake Fund. I moved $1,920 from checking. I closed the card access attached to Mom and left the old account open with $18.72 in it, because there were still pending charges that needed to meet the truth. When Graham asked if I was sure, I signed my name. For the first time in years, my hand did not shake. After I signed those forms, I did not drive back to work right away. I sat in the credit union parking lot with both hands on the steering wheel, watching people go in and out with deposits, loan papers, birthday checks for grandchildren, ordinary money, ordinary errands, the kind of ordinary I wanted back. My lunch break was almost over, but I opened my phone anyway and searched for cabins near water, not Gatlinburg, not the Smokies. Not anywhere Brielle could claim belonged to the family. Lake Lure came up first because I had typed it once years ago, after Dad mentioned it on a drive home from church. He had said the water there looked so still it seemed like somebody had ironed it. I remembered laughing, because only my father could describe a lake like laundry. There was a small cabin available for the same week Brielle had booked Cedar Ridge, Blue Heron Cabin, 4 nights, $612. No hot tub, no game room. No stone fireplace tall enough for a real estate brochure. Just 2 beds, a kitchenette, a porch, and a wooden dock that stretched into quiet water. I clicked through the pictures slowly. A coffee maker on the counter. A small round table by the window. A view of the lake between 2 pine trees. Nothing fancy. Nothing that needed to impress anyone. Perfect. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and ran the numbers. Cabin, $612. Gas, boat rental, $95. Gem mining for Caleb, $52. Ice cream, postcards, emergency cushion, $120. Total, $1,284. I looked at that number for a long time. Then I looked down the hall, where Junie's nightlight glowed blue under her door and Caleb's map was still folded on his dresser. I booked it. The confirmation email arrived 9 seconds later. I saved it in a folder called Kids First. Not summer, not vacation. Kids First. The next morning, Caleb found the yellow sticky note on the fridge while I was pouring cereal. Lake? He read, sounding it out like it might disappear if he said it wrong. Junie looked up from her spoon. Is that a place? It is now, I said. Caleb studied my face. He was young, but not too young to know when adults were hiding storms behind smiles. Are we invited? He asked. I bent down and fixed the collar of his shirt. Nobody, I said. This time, we're not invited. We're chosen. For 2 days, I let the yellow sticky note sit on the fridge without adding anything to it. No dates, no address. No cheerful countdown written in marker. Just one word. Lake. Tucked between Caleb's spelling list and a daycare reminder about extra socks. In my family, information did not stay where you put it. It traveled. It grew legs, borrowed a car, and arrived at Brielle's house before dinner. The family group text was still active. Brielle had not removed me, which was either laziness or cruelty. With Brielle, the difference was usually whether she had an audience. The first picture came through on a Tuesday afternoon while I was at the clinic, waiting for a Medicare claim to reload. Cedar Ridge Lodge at sunset. The sky behind it was orange, the windows glowing like someone had lit a fire inside money. Then came another picture. The hot tub on the deck. Then the game room with a pool table. Then a screenshot of a steakhouse menu where the cheapest entree was $28 and did not include a side. Mom replied with 3 heart emojis. Brielle wrote, Mom deserves this so much. I stared at the words until they stopped looking like words. A minute later, another message came through. I booked the scenic chairlift too. We can put it on the care card since it's part of Mom's experience. Part of Mom's experience. Not her medicine. To me. Talk to me. 6 to me. A chairlift. A hot tub. A lodge my children had been told would be calmer without them. I opened the banking app under my desk, keeping the phone low like a teenager hiding a bad grade. The old account sat there exactly as I had left it. $18.72. That number looked almost peaceful. Tessa Monroe passed my doorway carrying a stack of patient folders against her hip. Tessa was 58, divorced twice, and had the kind of face that made people confess things while pretending they were only making conversation. She glanced at my phone, then at me. Bad news? She asked. I locked the screen. No, I said. Just a bill coming due. She studied me for a second longer than most people would have dared. Yours? I looked toward the hallway, where the copy machine was making that tired grinding sound it made before it jammed. I thought about Brielle's white linen pants, Mom staring at her plate, Caleb's finger on the map. Not anymore, I said. Tessa nodded once, like she understood more than I had said, and kept walking. I did not reply to Brielle's pictures. I did not warn her about the account. I did not send a speech about boundaries or theft or how a family tradition had turned into a luxury receipt with my name hidden under it. Some people only learn from the decline screen. And Brielle had scheduled hers for Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning arrived, without thunder or music or any sign that something was about to break. I was at my desk at Foothills, correcting a Medicare claim for a man who had torn his rotator cuff, hanging Christmas lights in April, when my phone lit up beside the keyboard. Brielle. I let it ring until it stopped. At 10:11, Cedar Ridge Lodge ran the remaining balance. $3,580 to the card ending in 2196. At 10:12, according to the email Brielle would later screenshot and send to half the county like evidence of a crime, the payment declined. Insufficient funds. The message gave her 48 hours to provide another payment method, or the reservation could be released. Deposit non-refundable. Brielle called Mom first. I know because Mom told me later, in that small voice people use when they want confession to sound like confusion. She was in her kitchen, rinsing a coffee mug, when Brielle said, "Your card got declined." Mom said, "That can't be right. It's in my purse." As if the location of the plastic had anything to do with the money behind it. Brielle told her to check the balance. So Mom drove to the First Horizon on Chapman Highway, parked crooked near the ATM, and stood there in the heat with her purse clamped under one arm. She inserted the card, typed the PIN, and stared at the screen. $18.72. She called Brielle back from the bank parking lot. "There's only $18. Brielle was quiet long enough for Mom to think the call had dropped. Then she said, "Maren moved it." At 10:38, my phone lit up again. Brielle. Then Mom. Then Brielle. I was entering a corrected authorization number, and did not pick up. A claim, at least, had a process. You found the error. You corrected the field. You resubmitted. My sister's entitlement had no field I could correct. At 11:04, Brielle texted. "I know what you did. You need to fix this before Mom has a breakdown." I read it while standing in the clinic break room beside a vending machine that had been out of peanut crackers for 2 weeks. I thought about typing back, "You mean before your vacation has a breakdown?" I thought about sending a screenshot of the account balance. I thought about explaining that a care card was never a blank check. Instead, I put the phone in my pocket and went back to work. By noon, Brielle had checked her credit card. Available balance, $1,420. Mom had $700 she could pull from the emergency fund. Marcus, Brielle's husband, said his commission had not cleared yet. They were still short by more than $1,400. For the first time in years, they had a problem with my name on it that I did not solve. That evening, Brielle came by my apartment at 8:37, because people like my sister always waited until children were almost asleep before bringing chaos to the door. I saw her headlights slide across the living room wall, while I was zipping Junie into her pajamas. Caleb was brushing his teeth in the bathroom, foam on his chin, still trying to read the back of the toothpaste tube like it was homework. The knock came hard enough to make Junie look up. I did not open the door all the way. Just enough to see Brielle standing on the mat in yoga pants, her hair pulled into a messy knot that probably took 20 minutes to look accidental. "What did you do with the money?" she said. "My money?" Her mouth tightened. "Don't play stupid, Maren. Mom is crying. The lodge is going to cancel." I kept one hand on the edge of the door. "Then you should have booked something you could pay for." She looked past me into the apartment, like maybe the money was stacked somewhere behind the couch. "This is for Mom. You know that." "No," I said. "It was charged to Mom. There's a difference." For a second, she had nothing. Then she found the voice she used when anger did not work. Softer, wounded, borrowed from church ladies and apology cards. The kids were excited. So were mine. That landed. I saw it hit her, and I saw her step around it. "You are really going to ruin this over hurt feelings?" I thought of Caleb at the table, his finger resting on that green mountain road. I thought of Junie, asking if mountains liked us. I thought of Mom staring at her plate while my children learned what silence can cost. "I'm not ruining anything," I said. "I'm just not funding it." I closed the door before she could answer and turned the deadbolt. The click sounded bigger than it should have. Through the peephole, I watched her stand there for 9 seconds. Then she kicked the corner of the welcome mat and walked back to her car. After the kids were asleep, I pulled the suitcase from the closet. It was behind the winter coats, beside an old USPS tin Dad had used for stamps and spare keys. I had not opened it since the funeral. I almost pushed it aside, but the lid shifted, and a folded envelope slid out. My name was on it. Inside was a birthday card Dad had never finished giving me. His handwriting filled half the left side, uneven but clear. Maren, you were always the one who stayed. That is a good thing until staying starts costing you your children. Help your mother. Love your sister if you can. But never hand them the key to your peace. Take the kids somewhere with water. You always breathed better near water. Dad. I sat on the closet floor with the card in my lap, breathing like the room had gotten smaller. I did not cry. Not exactly. I just let the part of me that still wanted permission finally put the question down. Then I packed the swimsuits, the sunscreen, Caleb's rock box, Junie's yellow towel, and Dad's old blanket. My phone buzzed twice from the kitchen. Mom. Brielle. I left it there and kept packing. We left before sunrise on Friday, the apartment still dark, except for the stove clock and the thin blue glow from Caleb's nightlight under his door. I carried Junie to the car half asleep, her arms loose around my neck, her hair smelling like strawberry shampoo. Caleb walked out in his sneakers, with his map tucked under one arm and Dad's blanket folded against his chest like it was something official. By 6:12, we were on the road, windows cracked, the morning air cool enough to feel like a promise. Neither child asked about Cedar Ridge, not once. Caleb traced the route with his finger while Junie slept through Asheville with her mouth open and one sandal dangling from her toes. I drove past gas stations, church signs, and fields still silver with fog. Every mile felt like I was putting distance between my children and a table where nobody had answered them. Blue Heron Cabin was smaller than the pictures, but cleaner than I expected. Lemon soap, 2 beds with quilts faded from too many washings, a kitchenette with 3 mismatched mugs, a porch facing the lake, and beyond it, a wooden dock that looked old enough to have heard other families forgive themselves. Junie stepped inside and whispered, "This is ours?" "For 4 days," I said. "All ours." By noon, Caleb had found 6 rocks, none of them valuable, all of them important. Junie had named a duck Mrs. Pancake and dropped half her sandwich in the grass. I was sitting on the dock with my shoes off when my phone started buzzing. Mom. I let it ring. 128 miles away, Brielle was walking into Cedar Ridge Lodge with sunglasses on her head and confidence she had not earned. Mom followed behind her, purse clutched under one arm. Sloan and Carter were already asking about the hot tub. The clerk pulled up the reservation, typed for a few seconds, then said there was still a balance of $3,580. Brielle handed over her credit card. Declined. She tried another. Declined. Then, because some people will press a dead elevator button forever if they believe the building owes them a ride, she told the clerk to run the care card again. Declined. That was when Mom called the second time. Then the third. Then Brielle. Then Mom again. Caleb held up a shiny piece of mica. "Is this gold?" I looked at the phone buzzing against my towel, then back at my son. "No," I said. "But it's still worth keeping." By the time Junie laughed at Mrs. Pancake stealing a crumb from her shoe, there were 31 missed calls on my screen. I did not answer any of them. I was not punishing my family. I was just done letting their emergencies outrank my children's childhood. We came home Sunday afternoon with lake water still in the cuffs of Caleb's jeans and Junie asleep before we reached the interstate. The cabin receipt was folded in my purse beside Dad's card. Caleb's rock box rattled every time I turned a corner. Junie had a postcard for Mom with 3 crooked hearts on it, because children can love people before they understand what those people allowed. Tuesday, Mom called while I was sitting in the clinic parking lot, with the windows cracked and the heat rolling off the asphalt. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I thought about the postcard in Junie's backpack and answered. "Can we talk?" Mom asked. "You can talk," I said. "I'm listening." She took a breath. "I didn't know Brielle was going to charge that much." I watched a crow land on the dumpster behind the clinic. But you knew she was going to charge something. Silence. That was the answer. I didn't want to lose access to Sloan and Carter, she said finally. So, you risked losing Caleb and Junie. Her breath caught. Not dramatic, not loud. Just one small break in the line, like something inside her had shifted and hurt. I'm sorry, she whispered. I wanted that to fix more than it did. Mom, I love you, I said. But from now on, care means care. Medicine, heat, groceries, not Brielle's vacations. No more cards, no more shared accounts, no more emergency access, and no more using my children as the first part of the family you cut off. She did not argue. That surprised me more than an apology would have. Brielle did not call. She posted something on Facebook about loyalty and people who forget where they come from. Then she avoided me at Kroger's so obviously that even the cashier noticed. A month later, at the church picnic, Sloan ran up to Caleb near the folding tables and asked if he still had the shiny rock from the lake. Caleb pulled it from his pocket like treasure, and they ran toward the grass together. Brielle saw them. For once, she said nothing. That was not forgiveness. It was not healing. It was just a small place where nobody interfered. I went home that night and stuck Junie's unsent postcard on the fridge, beside the yellow note that still said lake. Dad's card stayed in my wallet. I did not need to read it again. The day I stopped funding a family that kept excluding my children was the day my kids finally got a vacation that belonged to them. Life has a quiet way of teaching us that love and access are not the same thing. Some people will call you family as long as your hands are open, as long as your bank card works, as long as your silence keeps the table peaceful. But the moment you close your hand, the moment you say, "Not this time," they act like you are the one who changed. The truth is, you may be seeing clearly for the first time. Maren's story is not just about a vacation. It is about the slow exhaustion of being dependable in a family that mistakes your kindness for permission. It is about the pain of realizing that the people you kept helping were comfortable excluding the very children you were trying to protect. That kind of hurt does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it sits at a Sunday dinner table, wearing a polite smile, calling selfishness, care, and silence, peace. But real peace is not the absence of conflict. Real peace is knowing your children are safe from being treated like leftovers. Real peace is moving your money, locking the door, letting the phone ring, and choosing the people who depend on your courage more than the people who depend on your guilt. Family should never require you to disappear inside someone else's needs. Love should not make you smaller. Helping should not become a subscription. Others charge without asking. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not revenge, not shouting, not proving your point to everyone in the room. Sometimes strength is simply taking your children somewhere quiet, somewhere safe, somewhere nobody can vote them out. If this story touched something in you, tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to set a boundary with family? Have you ever been treated like the responsible one, until you finally said no? I read your stories, and someone else watching may need to know they are not alone. If you found meaning in Maren's journey, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs the reminder. You are allowed to protect your peace, even from people who share your name.